Good morning, folks. Thank you to Eric and the Finovate team for this wonderful opportunity to present at this event. I'm Raj Raman, the co-founder and CEO of Signifyd, and I'm really honored to be here. When my co-founder and I left PayPal a little more than a year ago, we really spoke to a lot of different SMBs, and we saw an interesting trend that was beginning to happen. And that was SMBs were moving from the brick and mortar world to the online world, and they were really focused on coming there for multiple reasons. Obviously the economy, but the ability to create a store really quickly online. But the biggest piece of it was the fact that there were multiple opportunities to accept payments online from companies like Stripe and WePay and Braintree that just really enabled them to do that. But part of what we got out of talking to them was that SMBs really didn't care about managing the liability of their fraud transactions, in a sense that they came online, accepted payments, but their chargeback rates were much higher because the liability now belonged to them in the online space. So what we did at Signifyd earlier this year is we actually launched a solution for them called Guaranteed Payments. And it's the first non-payment gateway in the market today to be able to protect a seller in the case of an unauthorized transaction or a fraud chargeback. So effectively, you can think of us as an insurance for e-commerce. We like to call ourselves fraudsurance. But what we're going to do today is kind of demo you through the particular solution that we've built. And the technology behind it is really built on the social graph. So in this demo that I'm going to do here, I'm going to break it down into 3 segments for you. The first segment is really the use case that I'm going to show you about a person buying a ticket online. And why they would have gone through a decline process or a manual review process. We'll then walk through how Signifyd significantly improves that for you by making it faster, more accurate. So if you look at this particular transaction, this is an example transaction that came through, and it's a real one. We have kind of modified it for the sake of this demo. But here we see that Kim is going to be flying, and she is being bought a ticket by Santipa with all of these other pieces of information associated with his email, his IP, his phone, and she's traveling from Bangkok to New York. Typically, this transaction looks risky because it's an international transaction. The transaction's never been seen before. The person's buying for the first time, and the person who's paying is different from the person who's traveling, so it's going to be put through a manual review process. So what does that manual review process really look like? So the first step in the process of manual review is that somebody will pick up the name of the person and the address, and they're going out and doing a reverse lookup on a LexisNexis or any open data source that's out there. And what you see is that you validate the identity of the person. He's 39 years old, and that gives you a good sense of whether that's a real identity or not. It doesn't mean it's not stolen. The next step in this process, which is quick and dirty, is to take the 2 people involved in the transaction, that's Santipa and Kim, and see if Google can find something really quickly on them. If Google finds it, then you're onto something. If it doesn't mean it's bad. It just means that in this scenario, you couldn't find it. And the next step is to validate the identity of Kim. And so what you go out and do is you take the same piece of information, drop it in, and what you're seeing is Kim is traveling from Bangkok. Is there anything I can find about Kim that would put her in a position to be traveling from there? And here you'll see that she has a publication that's out of the .th domain, which validates that she's from Thailand. We're still trying to figure out the basic piece, which is why is Santipa buying this ticket for Kim? And that connection is what we're trying to identify. You then pick up the phone number, you go to another open source service like White Pages, you drop that in there, and you'll see that this number came out of Philadelphia, but it's a wireless phone, mobile phone, so you could actually disregard it because the person actually lived in New Jersey. The next step is you pick up the IP address and you go to another service, you drop this into that service, and you'll see that the IP came out of New Jersey, the same place the person is paying from. But the best part about this is that the IP came out of Merck, which means the person was buying the ticket when they were sitting in Merck, which is a great example of why you could pass this transaction unless the IP address was spoofed. So you still want to figure out what was going on there. You pick up the email address of the person and you go to LinkedIn, and you want to validate if that person actually works at Merck. So you put that in there and you'll see that he's a research fellow at Merck, but he also is out of the greater Philadelphia area. This is looking really good at this point. You could pass the transaction and say this is not risky, but I still want to figure out why he bought this for Kim. So I take the email address and go to Facebook, I drop this in there, and I see that he actually, that's his picture, he works at Merck. But the best part is the last name of the person here is the same as that last name on the person who was traveling on that ticket. I'm going to end with that story there, but basically what happens is that it turns out he was buying a ticket for his wife's sister, who was traveling from Bangkok to visit them. And that's fascinating. I mean, I just kind of moved this really fast for you, but this could take an agent almost 30 minutes to make that decision before they can approve that transaction, adding friction and potentially making a mistake, therefore the losses associated with it. So what we do at Signifyd is we automate this entire process, and we do it in real time in a few milliseconds so that you can make a decision quickly and pass that transaction without having to go through that entire process. And we do this by using the power of the social graph that I just showed you. So if you look at our screen, now this is what you would see, but this would be API driven behind the scenes. But if from a perspective of what this should look like, this would be all of the information that was entered on the left side that came in as part of the transaction. We then go out and enrich these data sources to be able to break it down into 6 segments that we normalize. If you look at it, you see the people. These are all the people that you either provided us or we derived from a data source on the outside. We managed to normalize the physical locations to see the locations all of this information came from. We then break down the organizations where each of these data pieces came from. So we would tell you that the IP was from Merck and the employer was from Merck. So that kind of makes your agent make a quick decision, or in an automated solution, a very, very fast option. And then we have network locations, phones, and any of the social footprint associated with that account. We then provide you a score that will help you make that decision fast, and the analysis that would put you in a position to say this is good or bad, if you wanted an agent to look at it or if it was an automated solution. So in reality, what we're doing is we're making this fast, more accurate, and to an extent less expensive, just purely because of the number of data sources that we pull together in real time. But what's even better is that if we make a mistake, if we say that this was good and it turns out to get a chargeback, Signifyd will take the liability for that transaction, thereby protecting the merchant to be able to focus on growing their business without having to be able to worry about the liabilities. Thank you.